Hey everybody, this is Stretch.
This is Devon,
Hudy?
and this is, I guess we could call it episode zero, part two, because we didn't actually get to have Hootie as part of the first interview. But yeah, we're very happy to have him around this time. And this episode is actually going to be about player housing, which should be releasing within the next few weeks. Very cool stuff. And we're going to be grilling Hootie on everything about that. So, as far as what we know about player housing, it's essentially going to be the introduction of a new skill, construction or building. Have you decided on a final name for that?
It's going to be construction.
Okay. As for that, we know it's going to be taking planks, nails which are made through blacksmithing and stuff like that, and a lot of time. But we don't really know a lot more other than that, and a lot of the people that maybe haven't been paying attention or are too involved in their own trade skills probably want to know a lot of the rest so they know where they fit in the picture. So what exactly to you is a player house in the world of Talibri, and what does it let me do?
So the player house is kind of your foothold. It's going to be tied to a city. Right now we only have two cities. I think we're going to have, I want to say, three more coming out with the release of player housing. The other thing we're going to see is every city is actually going to have its own crafting station for all the different crafting. So you're not going to have to only go to Guild for cooking. It's going to exist in Lowenheim and Gaunt, and there's a couple other city names. Roar's the name guy, so I'd have to consult him. But every city is going to have all of the different crafting opportunities, and you're going to get to pick where you live. Right now, that's really not going to have much of an impact, but in the future, cities are going to be expanded. There's going to be kind of like city councils, and you're going to be actually building up certain things inside of the city for bonuses and stuff later on. So right now, player housing is just kind of your first mark in the world. It's our first foray into kind of expanding communal play, but on a more personal level. And guilds are going to be kind of part two of that, where it's actual building of the community. So it's our first big expansion, I'd say.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, how does one go about getting a house? Like, what sort of people are involved? What sort of materials? What sort of cost?
Sure. As Deborah mentioned earlier, there's going to be planks. That's going to be huge. And nails are going to be basically a new refined material. Kind of, it's an extra step on refining the bars. So a single bar, I think right now I have turning into 50 nails, which is a fairly sizable amount. We don't want nails to be too time consuming, just kind of a more thematic element to it. Those are going to be the two primary components going into it. There's going to be a quality factor. So initially kind of the level 0 player house, the shack, is not going to have a quality requirement. So you can use any kind of wood, any quality you want, any nail quality, and you're going to successfully produce it. Certain editions might require certain kinds of wood. They might require some other materials. We have some kind of unique editions that might not require just wood. There might be some added stuff to it. But in most cases, it'll just be planks and nails. And higher level stuff will require higher quality, and I'm not going to answer everything right now because I'm sure you have more questions.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
I tend to just ramble on until it's all out there in the open, so I'll have this be more of an interview.
So is there any way for me to buy rather than build a house?
Yeah, so the way it's going to work is basically construction is going to be done in a queue. So level 1, you're only going to have, I want to say 2 openings in your queue, and you're going to be able to kind of slot up stuff. So right off the bat, you could set 2 shacks to be built, and they basically come packaged as an item. And the item can be sold on the market under a building contracts tab is what it's going to be. And then when the person buys that, they get to use that item. So under your profile is where your house is going to live. You're going to have a new tab. It's going to say player home. There, when you click on it, it's going to show you your actual house. There's going to be initially it's just going to say you don't have a home yet. You buy the plot of land for, I want to say it's like 50,000 leal. And then that pops up a new button that says, place your player home. And if you have the shack item, it'll say build. You click that and it'll build it. What will appear then is at the top, it'll say what your house name is. So you're going to get to name it. A lot of people like that. How much space you have in it and what level it is. There's going to be a little picture. I don't really have any pictures right now. So they might not have pictures starting out, but eventually we'll have them. And then underneath that is going to be the list of all the building additions that you can have. So, yeah. And anybody can make them and sell them as they want. Initially, construction is just going to have buildings, but kind of construction 2.0 is going to have furniture as well, which goes in the buildings. I'm sure people will get bored with building the actual component or the buildings themselves and the additions, because once everybody has them, the need's not going to be there as much. But hopefully by that time we'll have furniture out, and that's going to be more of it's going to be consumed on a more regular basis, I'll say.
Yeah. And on top of that, how exactly do I make my house better? Or rather, how would I actually make it different from everybody else's? Even if you can't do that with a shack, it's possible you do that with some of the upgrades as well.
Yeah, so the addition is really, or the additions are where uniqueness kind of comes into play. Obviously, everybody has their different focus. So each skill has 3 base buildings associated to it. They each have different bonus factors involved. And that's basically where the uniqueness comes in. So you only have so much space that you can put in your player home. As you upgrade the player home, you get more space. Each component or each building addition takes a certain amount of that space up. So you can't build everything. There's not that opportunity. Obviously, as you get to larger player homes, there's more space. You get a little bit more diversity involved, stuff like that. But as you upgrade the additions, they might take up more space as well. So you kind of end up with this juggling game of, what do you want to build? What do you want to focus? There's, of course, the opportunity to tear stuff down. So you can tear down your kitchen if you no longer want it and replace it with, like a prospector's room or what have you. You're not by any means tied in. Obviously, that addition is gone once you finish building it, but or once you finish destroying it. But that's kind of the caveat to it, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. How many of those furnishings will actually be available, and does that actually cover most of the skill bases as far as what boosts you get?
By furnishing, you mean the building additions?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's 3 primary bonuses that are going to be coming out initially. That's going to be mastery, success, and difficulty modifiers. The bonuses are activated through paying Leal, so you have to spend some money to get it, and they are basically tick durations. So the mastery one is the most expensive and the shortest. And how it's going to work is you're going to be able to buy 1 free bonus time every single 24 hours. So I think I want to say at like noon server time, I'll probably reset the clock for everyone, and you'll be able to get a free extra bonus tick. After that, it's going to cost you, and the cost is going to go up by probably like 20% every time you purchase. So if you want to buy multiple of these bonuses and they stack, obviously it increases the duration, feel free. It's just going to get more expensive. So there's, how much do you really want to spend to get better? And, every 24 hours that amount resets. So once the free one comes back, you're good to go. So.
Okay, so more and more bonuses that become more and more reasonable the higher up in the game and market you get. All right.
Right, exactly. We didn't want everyone to spam, take all their money and just spam the bonuses so they have it for months and months. There has to be some sort of trade-off there. So
yeah. So how far behind the actual release of the base Player Housing 1.0 are the new layers of furnishings going to be coming out? And what kind of design do you have in mind for how you're going to expand that over time?
That's a good question. So furnishings aren't difficult. I just didn't want to overextend with player housing. I kind of tend to do that. I'll design something and then I'll just make it so wildly unique and just I don't know. It's unbearable. I did that with equipment. Equipment just turned into this giant fiasco. And I mean, it's great. It turned out fantastic, but it took me a month and a half to do it. So I'm trying to really pace myself. So furniture really isn't going to be that hard to do. The real caveat being it needs to feel impactful. I don't want to add something to the game that doesn't have a real big impact. So the point of furnishings is basically going to be that when you have furniture in a edition that you activate the boost on, there is going to be a chance, or maybe guaranteed, that those furnishings break and they're consumed in the process. However, they give you benefits. So certain furnishings are going to have quality associated to them. Player houses and building editions don't. They don't have the rare, elder, any of that stuff. Furnishings will. So certain furnishings might increase the time and the tick duration, and the better quality you use of that specific type of furniture, the higher the duration goes. Other ones might add unique effects. It might increase the strength of the effect. Like the success one, I think at base is just plus 1d6. Maybe you have a furnishing that does plus 2d6, but it's consumed every time. So it's an added cost to it, but it kind of tweaks the ability a little bit. And eventually, later on down the line, I want to have certain furnishings that just completely change the way the bonus work. So it just kind of adds more flavor to the player housing, and it adds more flavor to the construction skill because I didn't want to make housing itself have a durability, which then would require you to repair it using these building items again, because the point of the buildings and the building additions is that they take a lot of time for the construction people. So they're not going to want to sit on that forever. And furnishings are going to kind of be the go-to once everybody has their home. And if those break, there's going to be mastery associated to those and all that fun stuff. So they can play around a lot more with that in that skill. So initially it's going to feel a little shallow, but so many people are going to want houses, and certain editions are going to be level locked, so they're going to have to get certain levels in order to actually be able to build the editions. And I think that market's going to be flourishing for at least a couple of weeks. And hopefully at that point I have guilds released. I've done some quality of life fixes, and I can kind of address that at least in a limited effect before I attack the combat rework, which is going to be huge. So
definitely. So if you're looking to bling out your house, unfortunately you're not going to be getting a rare or ancient house, but you will be able to have awesome furniture. Yeah. So that's going to be how you do it.
Yeah. So, and when you go for a mastery bonus, you smash the couch to smithereens. You got to do what you got to do to get really good at
That's how the party gets started.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in terms of the actual construction skill itself, now you had mentioned before that wasn't going to have a mastery tied to it, but levels will be tied to it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, with the actual construction of the houses, there's no mastery involved there.
So, so as you're building these houses, how are resources consumed? Are they per tick? Is there initial upfront cost? And if that's the case, what happens when I run out?
Sure. So there is an initial upfront cost. The legal cost. So you're basically renting like a construction yard, thematically speaking. Just kind of imagine it that way. So as soon as you start that thing that's in your queue, the money is taken from you. Consider that the rental cost. That's non-refundable. You're not going to get that back. It's not going to be huge, nothing gigantic, but just enough to kind of act as a sink. And then your first tick, what happens is it's going to calculate based on the resource cost and how much time it's going to take, how many ticks it's going to take, if there's any kind of remainders. So we want it theoretically each tick to take an even amount out every single time. So if something costs 400 planks and you do it in 101 ticks, something like that, we'll kind of shave off that odd number in that first tick. So you're going to consume a little bit more, and then theoretically every other tick you'll consume 400 or whatever, or 4 every tick. So that's kind of where we're going with it. So the planks and the nails will be consumed evenly every single tick.
So, so what you're doing then is you're with a higher quality materials, you're cutting down on the amount of materials being used, but that time is still that's still going to stay the same. Is that correct?
Other way around, actually. So it's going to be material cost is always going to be the same. The time in which you complete it is going to lower. So right now, and I'm still playing with the numbers, so none of this is really final. Right now, every quality you go above the minimum reduces the time it takes to finish it by 5%. So theoretically, the lower level stuff, you could, if you're using Ascendant stuff, you can reduce it by like 45%, which is huge. That's gigantic. But you're still going to consume the same amount. So you're not consuming less Ascendant stuff. You're consuming just as much. You're just doing it way faster.
All right.
Yeah.
So, what happens to consumed resources if I cancel out? Like, if I know I don't have enough, and
well, so if you don't have enough, that's a little bit different. So, it's not going to let you start something unless it knows you have enough. However, weird things happen if you post the rest of your materials up or whatever. It's going to pause. It keeps track of the progress, but it's going to say, oh, I can't do anything. I don't have the materials. If you get those materials back again, it's going to let you continue that. And that'll stay in your queue forever. So whenever you go back into the actual, the construction yard or whatever we decide to call it, it's going to remain there. So you'll always be able to continue it. Now, if you want to cancel that one out and start something new, anything you put into there is gone. That's sunk cost. You basically built the framing and no point in tearing it down, kind of thing. So you just burn it. So that stuff will be gone.
Armor, like armors are can't speak. Does armor or tools have an effect to this profession?
Yeah, there's going to be no armor quite yet, but we're going to have a specialty tool released alongside it. So you're going to get a nice little, the hell's it called, mallet or something like that. So.
All right, so I think you actually mentioned that there are multiple different skills tied to construction other than just building a house. What purposes other than just building a player house are there going to be in construction?
So this is kind of going into the future a fair amount. When we talked about cities earlier, cities have buildings, obviously. The way we're going to do alliances between guilds in the game is a little different. So like I mentioned before, cities are going to have council seats. They're going to have a certain number of council seats based on their size. And the way it works is those council seats are filled by guild leaders. So theoretically, within a city, that is going to be an alliance of guilds. The council seats are going to have certain powers. There's going to be abilities to boot them and stuff like that. But one of their main goals is going to be to guide the city in terms of what they want to build. So there's going to be kind of a city treasury. And they're going to get to decide what buildings to produce. And all the construction folks are going to be able to get together and work on this building. And everyone who lives within that city is going to yield benefits when this building is done. So not only are player homes going to make an impact on the development of your character, but how your city grows and develops is going to impact you as well. And those construction folks are going to have a really heavy impact on city growth in the future. And really anywhere construction comes in. We have an engineering class, or affinity, I should say. I'm way too used to calling it class. That's going to be coming out later on, and the construction skill is going to be what builds a lot of their constructs that they use in battle. So they're going to be pretty tied together. We will like to pair those, crafting and gathering skills along with an affinity. It makes a fun dependency there. So, Asomancer is going to have the ore. The Ranger has woodworking pretty closely tied with it. So, we like making those tie-ins.
Yeah, it's definitely good to be able to let people know that if they're interested in this profession of construction, it's not just going to be player housing that they'd be tied in with, and on the leaderboards, they're going to be, competing with everyone else just doing the same thing. There's going to be a huge future to everything that construction is doing. probably with a little bit more importance to the community of the game rather than just individual market sales. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I really like that
Yes.
aspect of the game.
Yeah, especially initially, obviously, like I said with the homes, once everybody has them and kind of has their niche filled, they have all the buildings they want or whatever, the need for construction is going to fall, and that's where kind of the furniture aspect comes into play. Until we get to the point where city building comes in, until we get to the point where the engineer comes out, we don't want any profession to feel boring and not useful. So if that should be the case before we're prepared to release any of those things, we'll find a way to deal with it. There's always things to add. So
yeah, and the one thing that a lot of people are going to fear is, and this is a really big question for you: can you fail at building something?
no. So yes and no. You can fail in a tick. You can smash your finger with the mallet and say, "Oh, I didn't successfully build it that turn." It's just going to increase the time. So we're going to see the dice roll mechanic with the construction again. So that same concept is going to remain, and that's going to determine your success per tick. So there's basically the amount of time a building's going to take is lowered by the higher quality stuff, but the difficulty is a little bit as well. So there's a little bit of a trade-off. It's not going to be as drastic as gathering because there's such a big time component involved. I don't want it to be, this ridiculous failure rate to successfully use, rare materials or something. The goal I have in mind is to get people off of this normal grind. Everybody's just gathering and crafting the normal stuff because it's the easiest for mastery grind, right? Like after mastery 3, you can't fail gathering normal material. Well, that's boring. Mastery is a huge part of this, but we want to promote the use of higher quality materials. And right now, there's really nothing in the game for that. And I think this will be a big impetus for people to go out and actually, man up and go gather the rare stuff, fail a little bit, take a hit to your mastery efficiency in order to build buildings that potentially increase your mastery game later on. So there's a trade-off there, but hopefully it's for the better for everyone in the long run. We'll see a little bit more market diversity and stuff like that.
Definitely. And the important thing there was just that normal supplies are not going to be just what you require to actually be a successful builder, considering the biggest and largest resource that you need as a constructor is time. So the higher material tiers and rarity are going to be probably the biggest thing to make you successful, because it means you're going to be able to have more and be able to serve more different people. And in building a lot of stuff, this is getting into some of our user questions that we've actually collected. We had someone actually look really far into the future and asking this, to what order of magnitude of planks and nails are we looking at for a fully fleshed out player house?
A lot. I don't want to say it because everyone's just going to be like, fuck this, I quit. There's no way.
Is that the next trademark phrase? A lot. TM.
Fuck
4-letter terms, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess in order to answer that, we kind of have to get across the scope that we hope to intend for the game. So, Alpha was all about the individual, which was great. We got a lot of the fundamentals done there. Beta is a lot more about communal play. So we're going to have guilds, cities, fun stuff like that. Territory control, a lot more kind of political aspects to it. Well, after that, we kind of have this empire concept, right? So we want people to be able to build cities out themselves in the future and, create this kind of global conflict. And we're going to have events tie into that kind of scope. So, when I say the highest level player house right now, I have in mind requiring millions of planks. That feels bad because you look at your daily creation of planks and it's, a mere pittance of that. So really the goal for player housing, I'm not intending people to get to the maximum house, given the current skill set. Workers are going to come out, and that's going to smooth things up a lot. You're going to be able to have your own production lines. Send them off to make planks yourself. That's going to make things a hell of a lot easier. But you're definitely going to reach points where you look at the next requirements and say, why would I do this to myself? And the answer there is, wait, you're probably not supposed to do that to yourself. I don't want anything to be unachievable, but I give myself enough leeway with every release so that I can buff things, or I can give benefits. The whole point of 9 months to actually hit Mastery 20 is so that I can do things like player housing, where we give Mastery bonuses. We have pickaxes that give Mastery bonuses. Player housing isn't the last thing that's going to give Mastery bonuses. So, really want to get it down to a feels good 3 to 4 months, which for a lot of people probably doesn't feel good, but when you're playing an idol that's meant to be played over years, that's fine. You become the best at a couple of things in any given year. We release new stuff. So that's really where the goal is. So, don't be too consumed by the scale and the numbers you see, because it won't feel that bad in 3, 4, 6 months time.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a sidetrack from the actual topic that we're doing. But earlier he mentioned workers. That's actually going to be like a non-player character that assists you, that you can actually hire for a beer that I believe that you're adding in later into the game. So essentially, if you're not a big fan of doing the stuff that takes a very long time to do, and you like instead getting something every single tick, construction is actually a perfect thing to actually put them up to. But that'll be a feature that's actually released later on. And we'll probably have an episode of that much later on as well, or another interview like this.
All right. Here's another question. I know you touched on this one a little bit already. Are houses and guilds going to be somewhere, an actual place, or are they going to be more ethereal entities that supply benefits to one or more people that they are tied to?
Player houses are tied to a city, and again, that once we go into city development a little on down the line, that's going to play a really important factor. Guilds are as well. So guilds are going to be tied to a city, and that's how you become part of a city council. Your guild has to be tied there, and you kind of have to be voted into power. So initially, when those two features come out, it's not going to feel like much. When you create your guild hall, it's going to say, where are you putting it? And I assume most people are just kind of wing it, and until there's an actual reason to not wing it, I'm fine with people just picking whatever. More likely, you're not going to be forced to stay there. Actually, when you want to move cities, I think it's like a 24-hour cooldown. So, you're still going to be able to use your house, but it's going to be stuck in that one place for 24 hours, and then it'll transition over. And obviously, there's going to be safeguards so that any events that are going on tied specifically to that city or tied specifically to another guild or whatever, when you leave and join them, you can't just kind of reap the rewards, because that's a common problem in a lot of games where people just kind of guild hop or city hop or whatever, and just get there at the end of an event and then get all the rewards and leave again. And we don't want that kind of abuse. That's more of my problem than anyone else's. But just want everyone to know I'm thinking of it. Can't pull me over on that one.
So these are almost more mobile homes and RVs than houses.
Kind of, I don't know. I think of it as like magical moving. This is the best part about being in a fantasy world, right? Is because I don't have to deal with explanations that always make sense.
That's Roarbee's job.
Kind of. And Roar sometimes hates when I do this because I love just saying because magic, because who's going to argue with me? But really, that's what it comes down to. There's a lot of freedom of expression there. There's a fine line where game mechanics meet something that makes sense, and it's kind of hard to mesh those together sometimes. And having the ability to just say like, oh, well, there's a magical thing that kind of helps you do this is a really great cop-out. So I really like that. And Roar really tries hard to find logical explanations for some of these things, whereas I am much more likely to just say, fuck yeah, magic. we balance each other out pretty well. He usually gives a better excuse than I do, which is just, it's you magically teleported your house. It just took 24 hours. So he'll probably come up with something cooler.
Yeah, and another follow-up question. About how many levels of housing will there be after the shack? I know that you mentioned shack is level 0. Are you actually just going to be releasing the levels of them over time as it becomes relevant to the player level overall in the community?
So let me actually look here. I have 18 levels of player home.
And you're saying that highest one is like 1 million?
Not quite. It's a lot. So okay. So here, the logical place I expect most people to stop would probably be level 6 or 7 right now. I would say. So 18 right now. And again, these numbers are likely to change, but I have 100 million planks. So it's a lot. It's a shitload, actually. But the goal there is that you're not going to hit that in this current state of the game. And by the time we actually get there, player homes might almost evolve into like a player city. Right now it's a home, but I can fully see this turning into, and I've kind of designed it in a way that it will make it easy for me to turn this into a player city. I already have the ability for people to have multiple buildings. Right now I'm just forcing you to have one. So by the time we get to that kind of situation, hold on, my wife is coming in. I'm talking to people, my love.
You need a blanket.
Need a blanket? From in here. One moment.
Blankets and Talibri confirmed.
Safety blankets. I don't see a blanket in here, love, other than the ones on the bed.
It's okay, we'll edit this part out.
Stream exclusive.
Sorry for that delay.
Gotta ask the questions in his moment of weakness.
Yeah, there you go. Where was I? What were we talking about?
You're talking about level 18 being 100 million planks, and honestly, I want to accept that. A challenge accepted.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal, right? So, so player cities. That's kind of a long-term goal. In the design, so it's not going to completely break my back when it actually comes time to implement it. But yeah, I mean, I figure, where did I say you could get to pretty easily? So like 6 or 7. Once workers in their full come out, I can easily see 10, 11, maybe even 12 if people really get into it. And then it's probably going to be another cap until there's an easier way to get mass-produced planks. Not to say some people won't be able to do it, but there also might not be the immediate benefit to it yet. Housing is something we're going to add to as we go on. As more fundamental features come out, there's a great opportunity for us to make a building that makes that thing better. So once the combat rework happens, there's a lot of new mechanics that we're going to be introducing to combat itself. And I fully expect at least another 5 or 6 buildings to come out that, modify combat in some aspect.
All right. So do you plan on having special events tied to housing? Like the example here is during Easter. Will you be able to visit someone's house via their profile, find an egg or candy during Halloween? Maybe give them a present on their character's birthday?
That's a cool one. I mean, so finding things in their house, I don't really know programmatically how I would do that at the moment. Super low on the priority list, I might add. Not a bad idea, but not going to see it anytime soon. Gifting people is something that I've been considering, especially given the whole tumultuous premium currency going to things that you could sell for legal. Like that was kind of a controversy for a while. So gifting is something I've thought about. Maybe that's where start a player trade or something like that. But you will be able to see other people's homes and the additions that they have on their home. So, you'll basically effectively be visiting them. I may block that at some point in the future once we get into the more political aspects of the game, when guilds kind of become a real thing and city alliances happen. Knowing what people's player homes are made of and what additions they have and everything kind of gives you hints in terms of what they're doing, and some people may not like that. So for now, at least, you're going to be able to see it. It doesn't really mean a whole lot right now, so I don't think it's very impactful. I fully expect a lot of people to change what they're doing as we release more stuff. So yeah, you're going to be able to see their homes.
On the topic of actually seeing someone's home, you already answered 90% of this question that was brought in by a user of can you actually name the home? And you said that it was yes. But the important thing for Pride that a lot of people have been asking and is a high concern is when someone else builds a house and you buy it from them, does it say built by?
Not right now, but sure, it will. It will now. I didn't think about that, but it should.
An ongoing concern of that is because houses are built upgrade at a time, and which it becomes like a new level of house, that would create an issue where like it would built by, and it's like 7 different layers of built by tags. So is that going to be a thing that happens like a giant Matroska egg where everything's just a different layer?
Yeah. I mean, I'll just keep adding the builders to it. Yeah, I don't see why not. That'd be a fun little, 18 people had a hand in building this home, and this addition was built by this person and all that. Yeah, I don't see why I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, there might be people that want to actually hide that, because I know a couple of people that I've talked to actually want that pride of saying that they built their house. But if they actually have another job, they're probably not going to want to spend all that time building it all themselves. Also, if they have workers building the house, who actually gets the built by tag?
That's true. So initially, workers aren't going to be able to make equipment and homes. So they're going to start out basically as gathering and refining slaves, and that's where they're going to. Well, they might do components too. Eventually, they'll do everything. So the workers are going to kind of be built in phases. Eventually, they're basically going to be miniature players that just kind of do their own thing with their own mastery sets and stuff like that. Initially, it's just going to be they're going to have skills that have levels, and they're going to do very kind of flat chores at a certain speed and stuff like that. They're going to have stats of their own, but that's a concept that's going to be built upon a lot. But their initial release is basically going to be, let me help you make production lines. You do the hard stuff, and we'll do the grunt work. So that's kind of the niche they're going to fill initially. But eventually, they're going to be basically just players that you tell what to do. You're effectively going to be multi-accounting without actually having multiple accounts. That's kind of what the goal is, and you're going to be able to trade them off and what have you. So there'll be a market to that as well.
I almost wouldn't want your slaves building houses for me.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Probably have a lot of
continuity issue there.
Liability there.
Let's see, where do we leave off? Okay, so taxes. Are there going to be taxes placed on houses? Also, if are there going to be risks towards damaging the house, and is insurance available? So.
Okay, multi-tenant part. Taxes initially no. Once cities are controlled by alliances, taxes will become a thing. And they're going to be kind of set by the alliance, or the council seats, I should say. That kind of factors into controlling the seats. So obviously, if they set the taxes really high, the player base is going to have the opportunity to submit votes and kind of reduce their power and make it so that it's possible for somebody else to take over that council seat. So, really you don't want to piss off your constituents, in this case, all of the people living in your city. But right off the bat, no, there's not going to be any consistent legal upkeep at the moment. I think the bonuses themselves you could almost see as the taxation and upkeep. You're paying Leal to actually activate them, so I don't see a need to say weekly you owe X amount. That's overkill almost.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a risk towards damaging player structures?
Not right now.
Right. You had said that you didn't want the house itself to actually have a durability, but rather the furniture. So even included in that, there's no risk of like a house fire where it damages other people's furniture.
No.
Okay.
No, I mean furniture and again, I mean things change. If we come up with a really cool system, that's great. But breaking shit for the sake of breaking shit, I'm never really a huge fan of. So I can't see a reason. I mean, when you start activating bonuses with furniture in the future, I'd say any furniture is going to have a chance of breaking. And thematically, that might not make a whole sense, but just in the structure of gameplay, I think it does. It really gives construction workers kind of something to focus on and something to give them attention when there's the lull in, holy shit, this house costs $1 million, planks to build. Fuck that. I'm not working on it now. So it gives them something to do while they're in the in-between time. So
this is Hudy, not George R. R. Martin.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm not gonna, come in and murder your workers for no reason. There's just no purpose to that. So yeah, I don't really do anything without some sort of mechanic in mind. So if there's something in the future where, you have a chance to like put your house through a rift or something in order to get something crazy, really good, sure, you might damage the damn house, but the opportunity for reward there is going to be big enough that you'll probably want to do it.
Yeah.
So for now, I can't see it, but who knows?
Yeah, I was thinking some really fun mechanic where some guild dungeon pops up out of nowhere, and it's actually just the richest player in the world's house that you're just wrecking furniture in. So
that'd be fun.
Yeah, or that's actually how a guild dungeon could be. It's just some mad wizard that has a whole bunch of animated furniture.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. So we already talked about how when you're constructing a house, when you're finished on it, you can actually post it up on the market and sell it. You can also have a house be placed and then move it. Can I actually set it up myself after I've already had another house and put a second one down and then rent that out?
Right now, no. I like the idea of secondary homes and stuff like that. It's something I've been toying with. So almost like the benefits of what you're doing or how good the house is apply only to things within the city. Wouldn't be hard to add, but right now the construct's just not there, and I don't know if I want to enforce something like that quite yet. Once more mechanics are tied directly to the city, there's going to be benefits if your guild lies within a city and you activate certain bonuses. The bonuses will likely only apply to the actual shops and stations inside of that city. Once a city is owned by the council seats, they're going to be able to activate bonuses on the actual stations inside of that city, only for the residents. Once those kind of factors come into play, I can see the benefit of having like a secondary home, unlocked through some way. I don't know. There's got to be some sort of unlocking mechanism to everything, basically. But I could see the benefit to that because eventually, I'm hoping we're going to have 12 to 20 upwards cities. It really kind of depends on the player base. We don't want to overdo it and have every city only have 10 occupants. That really doesn't make it fun. So we'll monitor that stuff, and Aurora has a shitload of cities throughout the freaking world already created in his mind. So it's just a matter of plucking the names out of his head and putting them in the game. So
instead of that 24-hour cooldown, if you actually had a house in that secondary city, I could see it just taking less. But there'd still be that limitation where if there's a vote going on, usually the votes happen at the same time for every city, so you don't get to actually be the leader of every single city. Yeah. So that might be how that turns out.
You have a primary home, and I mean the leaders are more tied to guilds themselves. So only the guild leader can actually be a city councilman. That's just kind of the caveat to it. It's almost like a step up in terms of community. We might allow players to do it themselves. I don't know. I fully expect that even the people who want to go solo will create a guild just for themselves. And I might just do that by default, make everyone kind of have their own guild. And if they decide to join in with somebody else's, that's totally okay. But there's going to be a lot of mechanics centered around guilds in the future, and I don't want solo players to miss out on that. But if they want to be solo, that's totally fine. They should still make a guild. There's going to be a lot of impacts there. So there's no reason not to.
All right. Considering the cost of a player house, you covered this a little bit. How well off do you expect a player to be to start considering getting a house?
So I mean, if it's 50,000 to actually buy the plot of land, if they're going to be able to construct it at level 1 construction, the shack. That's going to be the first thing they're able to build. 400 planks. Really, they could do it themselves fairly simply if they really just put the time and effort into it. It's not that hard to do. If they just go straight into combat, which is kind of difficult to do at this point unless you have somebody supporting you, it would take them a while. They'd really be better off just kind of going for it themselves. But with the current guild situation and all the kind of friendly player help, I think most people will get their house very, very quickly. I think it'll be more a matter of how many people are convinced to pull into construction. I know some of you guilds have people set aside for that. I know Pyrian and a couple others who are just kind of standing by, sitting on mountains of planks, waiting for the system to come out so they can start constructing. I have a feeling that demand will be much higher than the number of constructors can supply. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the costs are going to be extremely high for people who want to buy them out of guild. I have a feeling most of the people who are thinking about this kind of thing are already in a guild, and so obviously the guild members are going to be furnished quicker than those who are not. So really, for any new players coming in or any individuals who aren't in a guild, build it yourself. Get out there and get at least the level 1 shack going, and see what you want, and kind of wait and see how the market develops. Because I have a feeling there's not going to be many on the market initially, and if they are, they're probably going to be expensive.
All right, cool. We actually have the last of our prepared questions that we got from users before we actually started this. And this has actually been a question that came from the most individual people at the same time, which is, will there actually be housing leaderboards as for who has the biggest shack? And will there actually be Leo leaderboards following shortly after to show someone's net wealth or the just amount of money they have in their pocket? Will actually be coming out with housing or sometime soon after?
So I've been adding lots of logging to the game recently, to both prevent multi-accounters and to solve strange bugs that occur, like this weird negative experience one that has been plaguing my existence for the last week. And a part of that has been market logging. So I've added some pretty extensive market logging in terms of items that are sold at certain prices to certain people, stuff like that. Whereas before, I just kind of had an automated flag that was just thrown if a person did X number of trades at low value within a certain amount of time, kind of deal. So I have the data being saved in order to monitor these kinds of trends. I think really the problem is time. It's kind of always what it comes down to. Do I want to spend a week or so creating these market boards that I'm sure will have efficiency problems? Whenever you're trying to pull crap tons of data, there's always problems with batch processing and stuff like that. You got to tweak numbers here and there in order to not make page load times take forever. But I think what I am going to do is once player housing comes out, I want to get kind of a general economy graph going on the main page. So I already have kind of the construct built to show the current total leal in the market, just however much money everybody has sitting around. I'm going to throw that chart probably on just the dashboard so people can see now that we actually have a leal sync coming into the game. You're going to see some high things, and then it'll probably dip pretty drastically, which is good. I think it'll let everyone kind of monitor the health of the economy over time. And it helps us identify when we need to add new and more valuable sinks to the game. I think player housing is going to be so big of a sink that I might almost have to nerf it, make it a little cheaper for players. But I'm starting off at pretty strong values. So, we'll see how much it tanks the economy. And if it really gets too bad, then we'll pull back a little bit. We're also releasing the new combat zone this weekend, and there's the interesting thing about this combat zone is it's not so much that it's hard in the sense that everything's going to murder you in a hit, but more in the sense that it's going to take you a decent chunk of time to actually fight these creatures, and AFKing it might not be the optimum choice anymore. You might have to react to skills that they use, not in the sense that they're going to kill you, but in the sense that your damage is going to drop drastically. They might heal, when you least expect it. Your next attack, instead of damaging them, might just heal them up. So, you might want to not damage them that turn. And that's something that, I know there's scripts out there to handle combat, but I think they're going to have to be a little more creative with these new creatures, which is a great challenge for them. I have no problem seeing that come into play, but those creatures are going to have a lot more value to them. So hopefully they'll add a little bit more to the market before we can completely drain the tanks with player housing. But in terms of housing leaderboards, I don't right now see the need to do it. It is something I can do fairly easily, but the next time I address leaderboards, I need to add component crafting to it, because that's, I think, more necessary than player housing is. But I don't know. What I might do is just do chat logs or something, so when somebody upgrades their house, it kind of posts to the chat like it does when you get a perfect finishing. I want to do more of that anyways, because people love that shit. You see your name pop up in chat through a system message, and it's a lot of fun. So, yeah, we'll see where it goes. I guess I should say I don't see why not. Just not anytime soon. There's probably better things to be done.
Yeah, I can actually foresee that you wouldn't even need a leaderboard for it so much, as it'll actually develop organically and visually once cities come out. You'll actually start noticing who are the top players because they're the ones doing the actions where you live. And you should actually notice about what level they are due to the strength of their actions.
Yeah, and once cities are developed more, that whole layout is going to change drastically. It's not just going to be a panel of buildings. There's going to be stats involved. Cities are a key focus for hopefully the second half of this year. Really, I want to get combat into a really good place. I want to get guilds into a really good place. Guilds and combat kind of tie into each other with guild versus guild, and I want to do some territory control kind of situations here in the next couple of months. Once those systems are down, at least in their basic form, we'll move into kind of city development, start designing out some of those aspects, talking about them a whole lot more, getting player feedback, and I'm sure people are going to have a lot of ideas as to how that should work. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how everything develops, but really this is, it's the beginning of beta, and we have a lot more that we want to do. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, with those that are actually screaming "immerse me" and actually haven't watched the last episode with Roarbee, a lot of people are definitely excited. So your implementation of the cities, as well as Roarbee filling in all that information, I don't think people are going to be disappointed with that. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Now we've got a couple viewer questions here. First one is, has anyone commented on the quality of that double door yet?
Funny thing is, that is actually a double door to my closet. In there, if I open it up, it would be all the empty boxes of my entire computer display system and all of my, the desk, the Yeah, so
That's where he puts everything pre-stream.
funny, and that corner behind me is where my lamp would have been, and the light would be shining right into the camera. So that's actually behind me on this side. So be happy about that. You'd all be blind otherwise.
Also, the observation that he dropped a $20 word. The
Matroska. Yeah, I saw that. I love that word.
Mashy commenting her house would burn down many times if she cooked.
Not in the game.
An actual question though.
The furniture though would.
True.
Will you be able to equip workers with tools?
Not in version 1, but yes. Yeah, like I said, they're basically going to be players. So almost anything a player can do, workers will actually be able to do. There might be some caveats, like equipment crafting is a one-off kind of thing. You're not doing that in ticks. So I don't foresee them doing something like that. But anything that's done repetitively, they're going to be able to do it. There's going to be some differences, right? So you doing it is always going to be more efficient than the worker doing it. That's just going to be how it works. We want to really make you kind of the leader. You're the master, and they are your servants. Basically, they're not intended to be as good as you are. They're really just intended to alleviate some of the burden on you. A lot of this stuff in the future is going to require high quantities. Right now, everyone's focused on low quantity, high quality, which is great. That's a different focus. Workers are intended to alleviate that desire for high quantity. So you can still focus on good quality. You get your workers all up to the right quality level, and you kind of naturally just get higher quantities of things. So they're effectively just miniature players.
Can workers have workers who also then have workers?
Well, I myself was actually planning on doing something similar to that, but that's just because I'm a cook, and you said that you actually have cooks making beer. So I was actually hoping that I could actually apprentice up a worker. I don't know if you're going to allow you to do that, but I want to have a worker become a cook to make beer to actually feed other workers. And then I eventually get enough people of workers making beer that they just sustain all of my other workers. So that's workerception.
It's definitely workerception. I will say there's a cap on workers, right? You're not just going to be able to hire 100 of them and have them go about. And it's obviously going to be a cap that is once again raised by player housing level. So yes, workers will be able to create beer. Totally fine. If you don't want to spend the time doing that or buying it, have 2 workers making beer, 2 workers doing other shit. Totally fine. The people who are buying the beer or being supplied it through their guild or whatever, obviously are going to be able to put all 4 of their workers to task on something else. So, yes, you can have a self-sustaining system. You're just basically going to be working at half efficiency. That being said, the way beer is going to work is not probably what you're thinking of. Trying to think of a way to tease this without totally blowing it. Food is involved as well. Basically, your worker is going to have both a desire level, like a needs level, and an entertainment level. Keeping those 2 filled to the maximum are going to make your worker more efficient and make them better. You cannot feed them beer. You cannot feed them food. They're just going to suck. They're going to be pissed, and they're going to work really slow and probably fall asleep on the job. So having a worker period is going to be good, even if you can't necessarily feed or support them, as bad as that sounds. But yeah, so beer is going to be great. It's going to be very impactful, but not absolutely necessary. But I'm sure a lot of people, when they look at the numbers, are going to say, hell yeah, I need beer. So
I don't even do that much for my friends in the game. And these guys don't even work as hard as players. Come on. Yeah. All right. So we actually got a few more questions in that time. I I actually want to answer this question, which had already been answered early in the stream. Can any plank be used to make a home? Yes, it's just the additions that actually require specific ones later on. And if rarer woods or higher tiers of wood improve it, it's not actually a higher quality. It's just that you can make it faster. So, good question. Can one player build and another person move in so they are roommates?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One person, one house right now. Probably forever. Even if I include marriage, you're probably going to have your own. Deal with
All
it.
right.
Let's be honest, it's probably for the best anyway.
Yeah. That way, if there is a divorce system as well, they each actually have their own split and you don't have to worry about it.
Exactly.
So, all right. That's actually the last of questions, unless another one pops up here in the next few seconds. But yeah, that's been a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of stuff that I didn't know yet, even though I've been kind of, lurking around the Discord to find out everything I could. So
yeah. I mean, player housing was something that really became more fleshed out. As I write up designs and start to implement things, more things kind of come to my mind, and I end up adding things. So really, until the migrations start to be written, which I actually started today, things can still be fairly fluid. So today was a very, very good day to do this, since I have basically, made everything concrete. It's changed. It's going to take a lot more work than I'm probably willing to do at this point. So I'll just move forward with the implementation, and then make notes for rework stuff in the future.
Yeah. You definitely surprise me. Every single time you come out with a major update like this, you tell us like 2 things that this update's doing. There's actually like 15 that are in there that 13 of them you don't tell us anything about. And then suddenly they release and are like, what is all this stuff? So I'm kind of glad we're doing these interviews now, so we actually get to, plan a little bit ahead of time and actually fully appreciate all the work you're doing, even when you don't talk about it. So
there is a surprise with the housing release, I will say. I'm keeping one thing hush, but that's for the fun of it. So
question just came in, and I think this will probably be it, and then we'll wrap up. Are you glad you pushed player housing to beta?
Yes. So initially, player housing was boring, and that's why I didn't do it effectively. I started building it out and designing it, and I just didn't like it. I talked to Roar about it for a while, and he really tried to convince me to put it in earlier on. And the only reason we thought about putting it in was to do equipment sets. And I felt like a system like player housing, I couldn't just throw in because we wanted equipment sets. That just didn't make sense. So I basically rebelled and said, like, no, I'm just not doing it. I don't have the time. I decided to try offline gathering instead, and that turned into a giant fucking catastrophe. But it was a learning experience. So, there's those trade-offs. But this system is something that we're both much happier with. It turns out that it was a really good idea to push it off. The first system was boring and awful. So, yes, very glad we pushed it off.
I just wanted to add just one little closing statement. I know that many of you may actually have a lot of questions about this game moving forward, and we definitely appreciate the ability to answer those. So we're going to have a multitude of episodes coming out in the future on a lot of different topics. So when we actually release this episode on YouTube, go ahead and check at the bottom. We're going to have all the links to anything relative to this, like the Trello, like we mentioned last time, the game, the Patreon link, everything about that. But also, please actually post in the comments any questions you have, and we're going to actually record those, and on the appropriate episode where we cover that topic, we'll actually try to fit that question in somewhere in that. So we definitely appreciate any of your feedback.
Absolutely. All right. Again, It was a pleasure. Have fun coding. Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks. Have a good one, guys.
All right. We'll see ya.
Bye.
Good night.